I love that we all come together to support one another to help really drive and boost the industry that we are in. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining this live webinar with us and Simon Ellis today. This is oversubscribed, which is amazing. We've had loads of registrations. So if you've got colleagues or friends that haven't been able to join us on this session today, then please point them into the direction of Professional Beauty's Facebook and Instagram page, and we will pop that in the chat shortly so you can let them know. We are streaming live on Facebook and Instagram. So those who can't make it will be given that opportunity to ask still Simon Ellis questions as we go. And if we have any technical problems with our Instagram page today, we do apologise. It's our first day of testing this new software. Please just jump over to our Facebook page and you can carry on with us live there. Anyone who's got any questions for Simon at the end of the session, there will be time to speak to him. So please pop your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of the page, rather than the chat box. So, Simon, thank you so much for joining us today. We are so thrilled to have you here. And I will now pop my screen off so that you can enjoy presenting to the attendees today. But thank you from us for joining today.
Thank you very much, Emma. That's a very nice introduction, I have to say. And welcome and good evening, everybody. It's great to have you on board, and really just to be able to spend the next, shall we say, 35, 40 minutes with you, actually discussing and presenting kind of some first thoughts about basically the situation we're currently in, but actually looking at it from a positive perspective, to say, look, now is the chance to be able to create in this world of change, to really change one's business, to change one's focus, to change one's approach. And I've called it How to Win in the New Normal. This is the kind of basis of my presentation. And I have to say, first of all, a great thank you to Emma and the Professional Beauty team, because I think these kind of events, shall we call them, these virtual events, are absolutely the way forwards, because it's all about building a community that is doing something for the good of all. So first of all, well done, Professional Beauty. Well done, Emma and the team. Absolutely fantastic. Second person I want to thank are the Dazed team, Dazed and Confused, because actually they are a very interesting group of magazines led by a guy called, a really amazing creative called Jefferson Hack. They're London-based. They have Dazed and Confused, Dazed Media, they have Dazed Online. But what is really interesting is that they really focus on the idea of the creative collective and actually looking at the kind of ideas and how you generate them in, shall we say, the new world in which we face. And they did a very interesting broadcast the other day, which was talking about how we face tomorrow. And there was some really interesting insights, which I want to share with you this afternoon. And they've allowed me to put them into my presentation. Third point I would just like to make is, please excuse the quality of my presentation. It's not necessarily the best, but it was cobbled together at very short notice, because actually I was supposed to be on holiday in France, in Paris with my family. And all of this is, I'm sure all of us are in the present situation. It all fell apart at the last minute, but I'm still on holiday and I was asked to present this, and I felt it was really important. So yesterday afternoon, I spent a few hours just pulling ideas together. And this is what I want to share with you this afternoon. And I'm going to just quickly share my screen. So if I just click on here and share, and really this, as I said before, this idea, this webinar is talking about how we can create chance out of change and how to win in the new normal. And I've divided it up into two parts. Oops, interesting, hang on, okay, change. Fine. Oh, here we go. Sorry, it was a bit slow. Here we go. Excuse me. So 2 parts. First of all, the key lockdown learnings. First of all, the market. And secondly, how we engage with clients. And then part 2 is I'm going to talk a little bit about how we should face the new normal, as I call it, the new parameters of doing business, and actually maybe looking further afield, further beyond this, because I actually think there's going to be some paradigm shifts with regard to the whole world of fashion, and even down to the way that we structure our environments and the way we do business in the future. So when I talk about the key lockdown learnings, first of all, with the market, we know that it's total disruption. And even for companies like ours, basically, at the end of the day, all the salons are closed and our market is also disrupted totally. In other words, we can't sell product, you can't produce what you best do, which is creating beautiful hair, salon closures. But I would say that in my view, survival is all about having a strong brand image. And when I mean strong brand image, I'm talking about brand image which isn't just necessarily the day-to-day perception of your salon clientele as they walk through the doors. It is actually all the other peripheral things that you do to make your brand sticky. Whether you be a hairdresser, and I'm talking about communicating with your clients, dialoguing with your clients through difficult times or even through normal times, or if you're a salon, how do you project your image into the marketplace? Is it through advertising? Is it through digital media channels or whatever? Second point is survival also means actually having differentiating skills. And what I mean by this is it the quality of the work that you produce? Is it the quality of the service? Is it something that drives, at the end of the day, loyalty towards your clientele? And those services can be anything from beauty, from makeup to, or even just the total look, or even something called concierge services, which is all about the lifestyle they lead, the kind of image that they have, and how we as a team in a salon can actually project ourselves and support them in being, shall we say, the person that they are on a daily basis. In terms of stylists, of course we face potential job losses. That's inevitable, I think. And this is one of the sadnesses of what is going on at the moment. But at the end, what is going to make the difference? Yes, during these fallow times, these difficult times, it is about, at the end of the day, if one is going to continue doing work in this wonderful, wonderful business, in this wonderful industry, then it's all about upskilling and strengthening one's skill set. And I know everybody is talking about it to a point where it's become cliched. But I would say to you all that at the end of the day, one is only as good as the work that one produces. And at the end of the day, you know, I've always said there's only 3 ways to earn money in our business, either. And it all relies on, at the end, education. It's about doing more clients, working from 6 clients to 8 clients a day, for example. It's about, shall we say, upping your price, and upping your price means upskilling. Either you're more technical or you're more creative. Or last of all, it's about selling more. And selling more means delivering a great consultation. And when I say a great consultation, that means at the end of the day, gaining client trust. Because if you gain client trust, you create loyalty beyond reason. And that means clients keep coming and they are loyal to the salon, they are loyal to the stylist because of that very fact that they, at the end of the day, have service beyond. And during these difficult and challenging times, now is the time to really focus on this area. And there is a dearth of, shall we say, online material right now, everywhere. Everybody is communicating online. So it's a huge opportunity. Second, a lot of this material is free to view. So therefore, again, there's nothing to restrict one from going out there and spending the time, getting hold of a block online and practicing on a dummy block or whatever at home. And at the end, what is really interesting from my perspective has been the reaction of clients. You know, and I'm a Brit living in Germany, but the reality is I listen to UK radio often, so on the BBC Sounds app. And you know, so many chat shows have been talking about hair and the desperation of clients at home to a point that I was even listening on one of the key British radio channels, which has literally 4 million followers or listeners every day. And they actually had a hairdresser there online talking, giving consultations on how to maintain salon quality hair at home. So at the end, what you see is that there's a huge opportunity coming out of this difficult time. And at the end, what clients are going to be looking for is the right professional hair maintenance advice right now and as well as into the future. What will that do? That binds existing clients and it wins new clients. So we need to think about how we get out there and how we decide to communicate. And to give you an example, you know, I was talking the other day to a friend of mine in London. And what was interesting was that she actually turned around to me and said, you know, she said, so many, and I'm going to just quote what she wrote, and I wrote this down. And she said, so many women have been in touch to say either, thank goodness I managed to get my hairdresser before lockdown, or, oh no, I don't get to see my hairdresser while I could. How am I going to manage? And it literally is that level of emotion, how it engenders a sense of panic. And what is interesting is that all over social media, women are talking about how to keep their hair looking good long after they were due for an appointment, as well about losing that lifeline for their self-esteem and well-being. And I think this is the most interesting part, is this idea that a person's self-esteem and well-being is linked to their sense of personal beauty. So therefore, the power that we have as hairdressers all around is enormous. The fundamental idea that we can create, shall we say, do good in this way is a very, very powerful message. So actually taking all this into account, what we did as a company, for example, and we literally have just launched it more or less this last week, is at the end of the day, we have created something called Help Your Salon. And I would encourage you to visit it. And we are launching it in the MEA region. So it's coming to you in the next few weeks. But basically, we've created, first of all, a platform around Together We Stand on social media. So these are virtual platforms, but basically the idea is that what we want to do is create community. Why? Because as Emma and the professional beauty team are doing, what better time than to bring together the worlds of hair? What better time to bring together the world of our clients as well? And the idea is that under Together We Stand, it's a platform where everybody can communicate, talk, learn, share, and actually vent their frustrations and actually voice their concerns. And the idea is that we can all help each other to survive and to grow and to be ready to really come out of the, shall we say, out of these difficult times, ready to reopen with lots of power and energy. Second point is that we have created this thing called helpyoursalon.com. And I would encourage you just to visit the European site. The idea is that a salon can literally register themselves, because during this difficult time, how does one earn an income? And this was really the focus for us as an organization. So what we did was to say, okay, why not then actually partner up with companies like PayPal? And the idea is that the salon can register. They can also then actually communicate, go out on social media with a code that represents their salon and invite clients to purchase products that they can do. And in this way, the money is paid up front and the money is paid directly onto the salon account or to the stylist account. And the idea in the future is that in the next week or so, is that we're going to involve end consumers in the same way. So we're going to advertise on end consumer channels to say, if you're an end consumer and you're missing your hairdresser, why don't you go to helpyoursalon.com, register your stylist or register your salon if they are not already registered, and send them a short invitation, encouraging them to do so. And there you were able to buy products, or in the future be able to, hopefully buy services, which will enable your hairdresser to be able to survive. So very interesting idea, and I think really helpful and needed during these challenging times. But coming back to this idea of what I call having a strong brand. First of all, really at this time, it's, I think, an opportunity to be able to think carefully about how we do business. Because at the end, first of all, a strong brand needs to stand out in the marketplace. And when I talk about a brand, we are all our own brands. So when I'm talking about this, I don't just mean a salon or a business or whatever. I mean us as hairdressers. Each of us in our own individual way is the brand, is our brand. And at the end, it's how we do business, how we project ourselves to the outside world. It's about standing out in the marketplace. So how do we differentiate ourselves against the stylist next door or the salon next door? What makes us different and better? Secondly, how do we connect with people? How do we talk? How do we dialogue? And that's really important in the sense of, do we just connect during salon time or do we connect out of hours? In other words, when the salon is closed, how does the client book their appointment? How does the client engage with the salon? Thirdly, do we create loyalty? How do we create loyalty? At the end, it's about inspiring our clients. If you can inspire a client, they will trust you. And that is the fundament to everything that we do in our industry. And what's so wonderful about this industry is all our skills are transferable. It doesn't matter where you go in the world, you are able to produce quality hair. So at the end of the day, we have this wonderful, shall we say, flexible platform as an industry. And at the end, what we're doing is creating something that hopefully is inspirational. In other words, simply making someone look and feel more beautiful than before. I mean, what a wonderful job. That creates loyalty. That engenders trust. And trust builds, shall we say, repeat business. And that's key to future success. And last of all, in my view, to be successful, all of us have to own our own brand. In other words, we have to stand and be proud about what we do. We have to be proud about the environment we work in, proud about the people we work for or with. But at the end, we have to take ownership of what we do. And that's the important thing, because if you don't believe in something, it'll never work. It fails. It fails right from the start. So when we talk about this, for me, there are some key learnings to be taken out of these, shall we say, difficult, challenging times. First of all, how do we engage with our clients? And that doesn't just mean as a salon, it also can mean as a stylist. First of all, as a community, we are alone but together. And that's the important thing to understand. Yes, we're all in lockdown, but we are together like we are now. I'm talking to you, you can dialogue with me. At the end, when we're talking to our clients, are we producing regular newsletters? Have we got the opportunity right now to do virtual consultations, one-on-one with both existing or new clients? Why? To talk about literally their hair problems, how to maintain their hair at home during, shall we say, lockdown period. That kind of advice is priceless. Secondly, what about doing hair parties or Zoom calls? Yes, Zoom is a fantastic tool to be able to use. So therefore, why not be able to communicate? Yesterday, I was watching some British television, boring that it is, and there you had a local bar, local pub. And again, their clients were in lockdown. What were they doing? They were communicating with their complete clientele, giving them pub quizzes, news, and so on about the pub, building that community spirit. Why? Because when they come out of this, they will be ready for business once again, and they've got a ready-made clientele there who are even more bonded to that particular establishment. And you could think about doing hair parties where you give hair advice, good advice. You could do Zoom calls, Zoom meetings, where again, you could talk about what you're going to be doing in terms of the services that you've thought about in your salon or where you're going. Yes, if you're more sophisticated, you could even do hair podcasts. And of course, we've got good old Insta Lives or Insta Stories, where again, we can communicate with our clients. So community is key. For me, this is the most important thing at this time. Engage with your clients and keep them and retain them. Keep that loyalty strong. Keep them bubbling over with inspirational ideas. Secondly, think about the kind of apps that you're using. What are the communication vehicles? So as much as I was talking about Zoom, but what about Instagram, Facebook? Again, I'm sure those are the kind of mainly used things that we've been working with for many years. But you've also got Messenger, you've got Google Hangouts, And you've got things like house party, if you want to take a more fun approach. And these are the kind of vehicles that you need to address. So you're creating this circular communication. You're surrounding your client with the different channels to be able to kind of always talk at one particular level with the client. And most importantly, I would say during this period, the story is king. It's not just the king, it's actually the kingdom. If you can win at this time with great storytelling. And when I say storytelling, telling the story of what you're doing, the story of your brand, the story around your staff, the story around the services that you offer. First of all, it needs to be rich. It needs to be immersive. Don't be afraid to go into detail. Give them, yes, snackable content, but in lots of bites. It needs to be engaging. In other words, encourage two-way conversation. And last of all, it needs to be entertaining. Sometimes a little bit of fun, a little bit of jollity during these, shall we say, dark times can make all the difference. And it positions you as someone quite unique, quite special, and different to all the rest. And at the end, what I would say is, and moving on, what I would talk about is at the end, it's about building brands. It's about retaining clients and building for the future. So when I talk about that, it means thinking about the kind of services that you currently offer. Could you go up further upscale? Because I believe there are opportunities at the end when we come out of this to be able to offer a different level of service. And I'll come on and explain a little bit more later on. And at the same time, be able to think about premiumization as part of that. And then the second topic is, where do you want to go in the future? You know, now is the time to really think hard and long about the kind of role that one is currently playing and what kind of role one wants to play in the future, the kind of work one wants to do in the future. So when we're talking about upskilling, is there an opportunity to further enhance your skill set and move into new arenas in terms of work to kind of widen your specialist skills? And in terms of your focus, it needs to be on the client. And when I say create a community, I mean we're all using all the tools at your disposal. Really build your client base, talk to them, communicate with them, and use them as a sounding board for the future. In other words, at the end, your clients are able to tell you the kind of services that you offer. If they're good, if they're bad, now is the time to ask and say, are there areas to improve? Are there areas to further develop? Are there particular areas that you're completely missing for their clients? Specialist areas like blonding, it could be blonde colors, it could be about beauty, it could be about makeup, whatever. Everything in a synergistic relationship to hair. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity and a wonderful time to be able to build on these kind of arenas generally. And most importantly, I would say to you, yes, don't just focus on the now. Of course, the short term is important. Yes, reopening is important. Yes, building the business once again is important, but also focus on the future. Focus on the activities and the services that will impact sales when the crisis is over. The kind of things that you will do which will further improve and further, shall we say, improve the state of the business and most importantly, improve sales. That's the key. So when we come to this, now let's talk about operating in the new normal. And I think this is the kind of a very interesting area. And here I've quoted something from Dazed. And this is very interesting because basically they were saying, first of all, consumers are demanding that brands act and communicate differently during the COVID-19 crisis, with nearly 2/3 saying how brands respond to the pandemic will have a huge impact on their likelihood to buy and consume services. Very interesting. So really, at the end of the day, how we act, how we communicate is going to be key to how we succeed for the future. And I took another element, which was this part at the bottom, and it's called didtheyhelp.com. And it's a new website set up to search brands, celebrities, and athletes to see how they responded during the crisis. Because there are, as you say, some people that have performed less well. There are some celebrities that have performed less well. And basically for me, and I think this is a very interesting statement, this is a wake-up call that our action, your action, how we perform during this time now matter for the future. And when we talk about looking forwards, interestingly, you know, first of all, there was, again, from Days, there was something about the economy that I picked up. And it says the majority of UAE and Saudi consumers are optimistic that their country's economies will rebound within 2 to 3 months, despite the crippling effects of the COVID-19 outbreak. So again, nothing but positivity. So in other words, what we've just got to think about, we've got clients who are desperate. We've got an economy that says it's going to rebound. In other words, people can't wait to break the lockdown period. Get out there, start doing business again. And you can feel it. You can feel it generally in the whole mood of what's going on around us. Secondly, what's interesting about brands, and I talk about us as brands, people as individuals, whether we're a salon, whether it's a hairdresser. And at the end, it says here, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is for me, the heart of what we do. Because at the end, we make people look and feel more beautiful. And this is such an amazing opportunity to create something special, to create, as I said, loyalty beyond reason with clients, both current and new. And underneath it says brand experiences, services, and behaviors are crucial to the future. Focusing on your audience's needs throughout this period is critical. So again, I come back to this idea that community is key. In other words, asking our clients, asking your clients what they need, what they're feeling, what they need, and what will they need in the future, and how can we deliver and service against those needs. And then, just as an aside, there's an interesting statement about fashion. It says here, slowing down is going to be a survival imperative for the planet. Potentially, this will lead to a whole new way of engaging with fashion, repairing more, and how to make your own designs from home. So again, and Lee Iddlecourt herself said, we will completely reset the way we consume fashion and dress. And I think fundamentally what's interesting about this is that when we talk about, and maybe I'm getting a bit esoteric, the idea of the planet, the one thing that I've been talking to friends around the world, people have said to me, you know what's incredible? It's about, I can see blue skies. And especially when I talk to colleagues in China, they can say, I can see the sky again, when before it was covered in smog. And a lot of people are saying, we don't want to go back to this. And that means we have to think and act differently in terms of the way we dress, the way we act towards fashion, the way we think about fashion in the future. And I think as yet, we haven't seen that impact. But I certainly can see the first glimmerings maybe in the kind of environments that we've got to create in the future. The new style of salon design that we should maybe be thinking about for the future. And I'll come on and talk a little bit about it in a sec. So, talking about this, the change for me is about, first of all, we've got social distancing. But what does that mean when we come out of things? So coming out of things, yes, at the beginning, when there is no cure in place, yes, we will have social distancing, for sure. But that means that there's an opportunity then to think about our opening hours. Currently, we will have fewer people being able to work close to each other. That means we will have either fewer people in the salon at any one time, which leads to an opportunity maybe to extend our opening hours. So to be able to do more over longer periods. Does that mean that in the future that we can continue in this way? In other words, offering a more diverse opening period for our clients generally. Secondly, there is the opportunity of thinking by social distancing that we could offer a more premiumized approach. In other words, there are less people around, it's not such a busy environment. And could we offer something that is more of a pamper factor, which is a slower service, a longer service, but based around less people in the salon, doing a little bit less, but focusing much, much more on the client themselves and how they generally feel. And when I talk about the pamper factor, this isn't just about hair. It's not about just color. It could also mean in the future, it could mean beauty as well, engendering there. And it's interesting, you know, in Paris, there is a style of salon that we call the atelier or the atelier. And these look like kind of glass boxes, often at the back of houses. So they are very much in kind of home settings. The salons may be set in an apartment. There's a great example in Paris done by a French stylist or an English stylist, but who's resided in Paris for many years, called David Mallet. And again, his salon is in an apartment itself, and it feels very special. So it's kind of got this new feel. Everything is much slower, it's much more personal, it's much more intimate. And of course, he charges premium prices for this. But interestingly, there is a colorist called Christophe Robin. And Christopher Robin, does color in a way that he only allows 1 or 2 clients into this environment at a time. And in his product, he actually pushes smells through the environment. So when you walk in, you actually have the smell of perfumes that are emanating across, and he mixes fragrance into the colors that he delivers onto hair. And he uses things like feathers and so on to actually paint, and he does all these painting techniques on hair color. So very interesting, differentiating, completely different, but again, focusing on pampering his clients. And we could think the other way around. In other words, if people are worried about coming to you, could we be going more to them? In other words, could we as stylists, could we as a salon team be thinking about being able to offer more premiumized at-home services? Or maybe it is simply in a private room. So again, this idea of being able to have sort of partitions in the salon. In other words, to create something a little bit more private, a little bit more premium, a little bit more pamper-like. So just kind of, I call it food thoughts. And when it comes to hygiene, of course, there's going to be rules and regulations. But at the end, I would say also, it's about having a salon code of hygiene. In other words, a hygiene manifesto. Why not the sticker on the front door declaring what you stand for in terms of visible hygiene? And I call it that in the end, what we're going to have to show as an industry as a whole is that we're going to have to be visibly clean. In other words, when a client walks in, we have to either show a code of hygiene, explaining to clients at reception what it means to us, that at the end, yes, you have hand sanitizers when you first walk in. Yes, at the end, you have sanitizers maybe throughout the salon, maybe the surfaces are wiped down, but generally it's a code of cleanliness. And we have to think about how that code of cleanliness then is relatable to the salon in general. In other words, first of all, us as people, our personal code. Do we wear gloves? Do we wear masks? Yes, of course, but it doesn't necessarily create intimacy. That's the only drawback, but it most probably is necessary. The tools that we use, I think most probably we will have to visibly sanitize our tools, our brushes, our combs, in what? In barbicides. And you know, it's interesting. I've personally gone through, so we say, another very challenging period in my professional period of life, when we had the AIDS problem. And there, when AIDS first broke out, there was a huge concern about, shall we say, personal hygiene and how certainly surfaces could be infectious or whatever, because no one knew what it meant. And of course, during those periods, this is when barbicide was very prominent, and shall we say, visible sanitizing was made a core focus. And I would say we're going to come back to that. However, things have improved. So now you've got UV rays, you've even got potential little boxes that you can put your tools in. But I think you have to do visible hygiene. Thirdly, it's about surface cleaning. Do we then think about cleaning the surfaces after every client has passed through in front of you? So again, we need to think about the salon layout, the salon design. Is it cluttered? Do we clean it completely and just leave the necessary tools in evidence? And fourthly, it's about the materials we use. In other words, the towels, the gowns, the capes that we use. And again, the consideration I would say to you all is, do we need to personalize and hand every client an individually packed, sanitized gown and towels for their own service use? So again, something that again could play into this idea of upscaling, of premiumizing just a little bit more. And when we're talking about change generally, yes, we've got Salon Closure, but I would say this is an opportunity really, really to upskill and to really play around the idea of your team technicals as well as creative skills, you know. And yes, I belong to Schwarzkopf, and we've got with our supplier DBD, our partner here in the Middle East, it is absolutely fantastic. And I would say DBD and the professional team there do an incredible job under the leadership of Jamila Paul. And I would say right now, they've got a complete online portfolio of education, just ready and waiting. Secondly, we've got some great creatives in terms of our local ambassadors as well as our global ambassadors, there to give away their knowledge, their skill set to be able to help us all as a community. And I would say to you all, use it, use it. Now is the time, as I said at the beginning, to learn, to upskill for the future. And of course, it's about individual business knowledge for any salon owners or business-focused people. Now is the time to learn, to brush up on those skills and to rethink and to be able to kind of think, how do we further develop and how do we grow the business in the future? And next thing is to think about how we reposition the brand. And when I say about this, what does that mean? It means now's an opportunity maybe to think about rewriting the business model. In other words, do you go from one type of business to another? Why not? It's an opportunity. Secondly, as I said before, the opportunity to maybe think about premiumizing, upscaling. Could you charge just a little bit more for the things that you do in the future? Because I think clients, because of this loyalty beyond reason, this desperation for clients to come back to the salon, there is this huge opportunity to do things differently and to think about the pricing structure without taking advantage of one's client. And I think at the end, it's about rethinking the brand story, the manifesto. In other words, do you have one? And very often, you know, and I was saying when I was last in Dubai and I was presenting, I would say, you know, I travel the world a lot. And what's interesting, I often ask when I enter a salon, I say, can you explain your salon concept to me in one sentence? One simple sentence. Explain what makes your salon better and different than the rest. Can you do that? And very often, and I would say 80% of the time, people cannot. Second topic I always ask is, can your staff do the same? If I ask one of your staff, can they say exactly what your salon stands for in one simple sentence? And can they explain to their clients what your salon stands for? Because it's so important, because again, as I said, those kind of salons, that kind of business survives through thick and thin, because everybody understands their role, everybody understands the focus and what makes the salon special. And when we talk about salon closure as well, it's the chance, as I said before, when we talk about brand building, then seek client advice and support. Ask them. They know best, believe it or not. And in fact, ask your team, because again, and I would say use the client community to steer your future services. In other words, ask them what they would like and want to have, because they know. And explore new communication channels if you haven't already done it, and the opportunities for further dialogue with your clients. And, you know, it's interesting because I think before I move on to this new set of principles, I was also thinking about how do we look at the future? You know, our salons in the future, I think they either can go two ways in terms of their environments that we have. Either they're highly science-based, very clean, very sanitized, very pure environments, quite clinical. Or I think there's an opportunity to go in a completely new direction in terms of design, to go in terms of much softer, much more cosseting, much more pampering, much more like being at home. And I think this, again, is going to lead most probably to a period of reflection and a slower way of doing business. But there's a price point for that. And I think people will reflect and respect that. I think there's also an opportunity to co-brand, to work in salon? In other words, in the future, do salons need to stand alone? Could, for example, a salon be part of a general community? Could it be made up of a clothes shop, of a coffee bar, and a salon altogether? In other words, it's one environment where you've got these different elements to it. It doesn't, so in other words, so we're more, so we say, business efficient for the future. I just think it's worth exploring and thinking about, because I think the one outcome of all of this, as I was saying, the fashion focus being different, it's about creating and about self-creativity, home networking, home creation, and so on. And maybe repairing old clothes, not buying as much. Likewise, I think for the salon, it will mean creating an environment that's more special, that's more unique, that is more cosseting, comforting, more pampering. And I think those environments are going to be much more comfortable. And that means thinking about them in a different way. And I think if you have synergistic, shall we say, partnerships with other local businesses, and I think we're thinking more on local communities, and that's the important thing here, to build around your local community for the future. In other words, to bring in other, shall we say, suppliers who supply things locally. And I think this will be a key message for the future, that we are embracing this idea of everything that's best around our own community and our local communities. But to finish off, I want to just talk a new set of principles. And again, this was featured in the day's Broadcast from Tomorrow webinar. And at the end, I think it's very interesting, because first of all, it says, stay calm and provide support and help where you can. So I think this is the interesting thing. Don't panic, because we've got a bright future. That's the important thing to think about. If we upskill, if we are strong with our work, if we have great services, and we have a loyal clientele, there is nothing but success in the future. Secondly, I think in this new world, it's about transparency. It's about honesty. You don't need to act as if we have all the answers. We don't. We all live in uncertain times. And I think we all face a future that we don't necessarily all know. But therefore, there's no harm in admitting it. Thirdly, and I think this for me is one of the key elements, be human. Now is the time to show emotive, personable qualities of your brand, of the brand. And I think this is the idea of creating community, being close to your clients, close to your team, and interacting with them and seeking their advice on the way forwards and how to interface right now. And I think it's important to have strong leadership in a crisis. Tone and behavior are even more relevant now. And I think, again, really important insight. Fifth, remember that actions speak louder than words. Great statement, because what you do will be the hallmark of the future. And remember, this is how people will perceive you for the future. And, and at the end, I believe that everything that we are doing can only create more momentum, more strength for our industry as a whole. Don't be opportunistic. This is the time to contribute to the public good. And I think, again, don't take advantage. This is really important, whether it's with price or whatever, when we come out of this. I think the important thing is to show humanity, to be transparent, to gain support from your clientele, from your team, to find out where you need to go and make them feel that you're contributing to their success, to their futures. Keep an open dialogue with your audience, listen and involve your community. And I think I cannot stress it more. And inform and entertain your audience and provide purpose through meaningful, relevant, and consistent storytelling. And I would say, yes, but I also say entertain, be fun, create laughter, because that engages and that creates binding activities. And last of all, adapt your strategy to changing behaviors, because at the end, obviously, things will change both now and in the future. Everything is uncertain, but the fact is, if you're flexible, and that's the key message here, if you're flexible, you can win throughout all of this. So, thank you very much for listening. I would end by saying one thing, when skill and passion work together, and I would say expect a masterpiece. I think this is a great statement. I live by this. I think when you can bring the combination of the two together, then you can have nothing but success. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Simon. That was amazing. And we have some questions. So, in the new normal, there will be social distancing for a few more months. How can we service more clients? And I think you touched on this. But what further processes can they put in place to deal with the situation more?
I think this, first of all, I think, as I said before, I think communication is going to be key. I think you have to keep your clients alive and engaged with you. Second topic is, I think if you have the opportunity to do physical engagement, in other words, I don't mean physical body to body, I mean more virtual engagement, by actually, shall we say, communicating through channels like this, like Zoom, like doing one-to-one consultations or even group consultations, like we're doing now. We've got a community online with us who can each and every one of them ask questions. And I think, why not engage with your clientele? Because that is the only way to keep things alive, to keep your business alive, keep your business, shall we say, excited, people excited about your business. And I think, thirdly, if you're trying to generate income, I think one can only think about doing things like, for example, selling product, like doing home consultations, helping your clients through maintaining professional quality hair at home. And that means referring them to online stores like helpyoursalon.com, where they can purchase product and the money comes directly into the salon account. And you can reverse it around. You can actually, in the future, Help Your Salon will be designed to be able to allow the stylist, the salon or the stylist, to be able to offer services for when they reopen. So why not then create vouchers for your clients that they can purchase from you right now, for example, which gives you some form of income and at the same time builds the kind of continued loyalty from the client for when, shall we say, the lockdown finishes.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are all initiatives which even during lockdown will even help drive revenues moving forward, aside from lockdown. What a perfect opportunity and time to start.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, what's interesting, I was listening to David's webinar yesterday, I think it was the other day, from HPS, and he was talking about his friend this one salon he consults in Ireland, and how they literally have been doing phone calls to their clients, phone consultations, and where they've been talking through hair quality and been offering the kind of products which the client can buy. And if I understood correctly from the way that David explained it, he was saying that in literally a period, he'd done in more or less 1 week between £3,000 to £6,000. So, or 6,000 euros. That is an opportunity. And I think that's something that clients, first of all, will be appreciative of. So I think one needs to think about it from a positive standpoint. And I think even making the client understand, first of all, to understand that the salon is closed, there's no potential stream of income coming into the salon. That I think clients are well aware of. And I think it's a win-win situation for both parties. Either the client, you offer the opportunities to offer a consultation in return for purchasing product. Secondly, to be able to do a consultation offer in return for offering a future service voucher, which they pay for now. Why not? Fantastic. It guarantees the business. And I think those things are steps that we can put in place.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, another question. Is it enough to have high technical skills and a clean modern salon image to make it today in salon business?
I think there is just as much of a market for a high-tech, clean, scientific image as there is much for something that's completely homely. I think both will play an important role in the future. I think they equally have their strengths, and I think it depends which way one goes. I think in some ways it reflects the kind of hair one does. I think if one produces things that are more technical, clean, very clean, focus on the haircut, on more of a kind of clean finish, less glamorous, it's more functional, more kind of for women who work, I think this idea of a very clean, sanitized, high-tech image is absolutely wonderful. It fits with that kind of, shall we say, hair image that one is projecting. For something that's more pampering, more glamorous and so on, maybe you need to think about something that's a little bit more pampering, cosmetic, homely. So it's a little bit different in style. I think it reflects the kind of brand that you want to be. But they each and everyone can have equal success as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question. You mentioned changing business models. However, this will cost money. And at this stage, most businesses are nervous about spending. What other ideas can we implement?
That's a very good question. And I think that's a very valid question as well. I guess the point that I was making was that there is an opportunity to think for the future when we talk about business models, how maybe one could think about what we offer to our clients in the future. What do I mean by that? Could we, for example, as one particular style of business, could we offer a home service? There's no harm in offering home services. Why not? In other words, could one's business still be a physical salon, but we also offer home care? In other words, something that develops for, the end, this particular environment is filled by the home hairdresser per se. But why shouldn't brands in the future think about it if that's a way forwards? For example, I think the second topic is, could one think about, for example, moving something into a more color-focused approach? Could you be a color-first salon? Does one need to be just a hairdressing salon? In other words, there are so many different models that one could use for the future. It depends on how one wants to perceive the business growth and development. And for example, could you be a blondes only salon? Why not? There are more blondes in the world than anything else. And for example, if that's what you do now, could you see, is there potential hole in the marketplace? Could you be something that focuses on balayage? In other words, could you think more in specialist arenas? And I think this is the idea. It doesn't necessarily have to be a standalone salon. It can be a new part of the salon that focuses on this. Is that your new business model around beauty? Could you, shall we say, introduce beauty into the business? Could you introduce makeup? It's those kind of additional approaches that widen the totality of the service offered to the clients. And I think it's more thinking holistically. And I'm not necessarily saying you need to do it immediately, but now when you're sitting at home by oneself with time on your hands to think about it, why not? This is the best, this is as good a time as any. And I'm not saying that necessarily when we start up again, this is something you can immediately implement. But what I'm saying is that at least one should be thinking about it. It's an opportunity to think about it for the medium to longer term.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Okay. How would you advise to grab the client's trust regarding hygiene during this time?
Very valid, really good question. I personally think it is about most probably thinking about a code of hygiene for when the lockdown finishes. How will you as a salon owner, how will you as a salon team, how will you as an individual stylist show visibly to your clients that you have taken on board, shall we say, the concerns of the world in relation to hygiene, sanitizing, and what are you going to do about it? So in other words, I would suggest that you need to think about a salon process. What are the steps that you take from the time that the salon walks through the door, the client walks through the door into the salon? What are you going to do about it? It's interesting, in Germany, and I live in Germany currently, I did a market visit literally the week before lockdown here. And I was down in the Frankfurt area, and already, because of the COVID issue, there were salons that were beginning to introduce the whole hygiene approach. And I walked into one particular salon, and there already they had produced on their reception desk, they had a code of hygiene already in place. And basically, they were basically saying, we have already introduced this for our clients. And I was quite surprised, I have to say, how proactive they were. And it literally meant that as they walked in, a client walked in, the first thing they were doing was that they were asked to hand sanitize, so to clean themselves in relation to just as much protecting themselves as they were their clients. So it was, and then they had literally, as they walked into the salon, they'd introduced this thing where they would, after every service, they would wipe down the surface. And they had already moved to every other position. So he had reduced the numbers of staff working in the salon at any one time. So he'd already introduced those measures. And I would say now is the time to equally think about that, produce it in written form and send it out to your clients, saying that once this lockdown is finished, these are the things that you would come to expect from us.
Amazing. So they were already turning change into chance, as you...
Exactly right.
Okay,
exactly right.
Time for one more question. How important is it to have systems in place that hold stylists accountable for their own success? And can you give an example?
Systems in place that hold a stylist, sorry, say it again. Systems in place that hold a stylist accountable
for their own success.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. How important is it to have systems in place that hold stylists accountable for their own success? And can you give an example?
Well, I would have thought any good salon would have systems in place that measure, shall we say, success. And how do you quantify success? I guess it's to do with productivity. It's to do with loyalty to the salon. It's how often does the client return? Do they return to the stylist? Are they loyal to the stylist? Are they loyal to the salon? And what is the average bill? You know, I mean, those are the basics by which we kind of measure, shall we say, success in any given situation. And I would say those are the things that one should be measuring. You know, I don't know, you know, the average frequency of visit. It depends, you know, it varies by salon. But on average, I would say, you know, most clients are visiting between 4 and 6 weeks every time. So I think if you are looking at that, I think that's a great example of measuring repeat business and measuring the success of a stylist's work if that client is returning on a regular basis. I think also you could measure, shall we say, happiness, the happiness factor. In other words, you can do send-outs post-service to the client, asking them, you know, questionnaires. It's like Secret Shopper. How, you know, what was the quality of service that they received? Were they happy with their hair? Did they receive, you know, the right level of consultation? Were they offered home care, shall we say, a home care kit? In other words, to maintain professional quality hair at home, the kind of right products to maintain the hair in that way. I think all those elements you can measure, and for me, those are kind of most probably the normal things that a good salon would do. I think one could think about introducing other elements, which is, for example, to measure success of a stylist, to say, you know, do you measure their social reach with clients for the future? You know, and I know there is a salon, I've mentioned it before, there is a salon in Sydney that operates this way, where they train their staff to, shall we say, to grow their social following. And they actually use this as a base to increase prices of their stylists based on the number of followers that they have. I'm not so sure that, I mean, it's good, it's an effective way, but for me, the classics are still the best forms of measuring, shall we say, salon success.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So I've had lots of comments saying thank you so much, Simon, for this amazing advice, wishing you well during lockdown. So I think this has been invaluable. So thank you so much for giving up your time, especially being on holiday, to join us. So if anyone else has any other questions that they want to send to me, I can forward them on to Simon. And do take care, Simon. And thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you very much, Emma, and thank you to all for listening, and to our future success, because we have one hell of a one. We have a great industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon, for your time, and thank you everyone for joining today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.